Futures commission to give us his insight. Welcome him.
Hi, everyone. You have a good lunch? I'm glad you're here. This is a challenging session because this is almost the first session after lunch. And I did have a very heavy lunch, so I hope that I can keep you awake and keep myself awake. Now, the presentation I have today is called Moving Steadfast. I was very tempted to just say moving fast. That has been the request of a lot of the market practitioners that we need to move faster, faster. But that's one thing I don't know whether you know. That is something called the backwards rule by Andrew Ross. Have you heard of it? Backwards law. Backwards law basically saying that the more you pursue one thing, the least likely you're going to get. That's almost like a reverse psychology. That's a bit like of the Zen type of mentality that if you are too rushed to one thing, that you won't get to the destinations. Now, that's why also as a regulator, I think it's more appropriate to use the word steadfast instead of fast to give the market an understanding of stability and movement. And this also reflects from my life before joining the commission where I build franchises, manage organizations. Whenever we do something big, we actually need to take 3 steps. Plan, build, and grow. If you skip that, you're not going to get what you want. Now, since I have 10 minutes, I want to be brief. I only have a few slides. The first few slides is really reflecting on what we have done. So important numbers that you want to focus on is this year, now, with a lot of the good work from the market and from us, we have actually licensed over 190 virtual asset service providers. It has basically doubled since last year. And in terms of other metric, I mean, absolute number may not be grand, but it's all growing. So you do see a lot of enthusiasm from not just the regulator, but from the market feedback that we are investing, we are thinking, we are growing. That's good news. And then the important thing, the timeline. What have we done this year? Important actually was 1 year ago in this forum, I promised the audience that we will release a roadmap for our virtual asset development. And that's what we did in February this year. On February 19, in another big conference, we announced our Aspire roadmap. And I will go through that a little bit to keep myself track as to how much we have done and how much more work we need to do. Now, throughout this year, we have been making progress. I mean, these numbers there, these letters there basically represented the 5 pillars of the roadmap, Aspire, A-S-P-I-R-E. So, I mean, I just want to give you a sense that we have made progress in different areas. And what is important today, as you heard from our Chief Executive, Julia, we are having 2 big announcements. One is that we are allowing our VATPs, I see some of you downstairs, to have the flexibility to interact with global liquidity within your affiliate universe. That's consistent with the way that we think about virtual asset, that is a global asset. And liquidity does not really reside in one area. So we want to allow our VATPs to interact with global liquidity. But this is only the first step. As I said, in different public occasions, we will have further liberations after we see the experience from here. And we're also going to allow our professional investors to have access to more product, including we have no limitation on the tokens that can be traded now for professional investors. Used to have the 12-month track record, now it's gone. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to be able to go through all the initiatives. There are 12 of them, 5 pillars, Aspire roadmap. I just want to give you a sense of my scoring as to how much we have progressed since then. The yellow stars means that we are far ahead. The half star means that we are halfway done. The white is still kind of work in progress. So I'm probably notorious for being a tough grader. So this gives us a probably 6.5 out of 12 points in terms of the progress. Now, it's very important. This is not measuring results. As I said, we need to plan, build, and grow. We are very much still in the plan and build stage. So this is really measuring progress as to how much building have we done. So it's a work in progress, and it's not bad that we announced the roadmap in February, and now it's November. We kind of halfway through. But my ambition, my aspiration is that maybe next year when we meet again here, it will be close to 12 in terms of progress, and then we can release our next plan. It will be perpetual in a way. It's always inventing ourselves into something while we are also learning about the different things happening in the world and also from our own experience. Now, of course, I think the audience will want to hear what we have in mind for the next. I don't really want to think about 12 months. I want to think about next few months. What are we going to focus? Now, but before that, here are two questions actually we wrote in the Aspire roadmap we think that will drive the digital asset development. One is that whether there will be more global regulatory coordination. That's a question. The second is that whether there will be more convergence of TradFi and digital assets. And when we actually prepared the Aspire roadmap, we thought, this will actually come fast. And it did actually come quite fast for the last few months. But as I said in the title, it's a bold prediction. I want to surprise you a little bit after some thinking process. Here's my takeaway. For these two factors, still very important, my view is that for global regulatory coordination, it's actually going to be slower than expected, but I will explain to you why. And then for the convergence between TradFi and digital assets, it will be very much back to basics, and I also will try to explain to you. Slower than expected is not because global regulators are not working, it's because they are working. We have a lot of experience sharing with almost any major regulators in the world in terms of digital assets. And then we see a lot of jurisdictions trying to launch regimes. As we regulators know, regime involve laws, bills, ordinance, etc., and it takes time. In Hong Kong, we actually started a regime in 2018. And now it's already like 8 years ago. If we haven't started 8 years ago, we are still scrambling. And then if you look at the US experience, I know there are a lot of momentum in growing the market, but you still need not just the Genius Act, but the Clarity Act, and that takes time. That's why it's not that we don't want to converge, it's just that it takes time. And then also, when regulators will work together closer, when we have common goals, when we have common regulators, and that's still evolving. If we have common regulators, regulators typically will work together to make sure there's no regulatory arbitrage. Now, convergence of TradFi digital assets, that's a lot been talked about. But also in the morning sessions, I hear a lot of the good discussions from the leading expert in the world is that in order to do that, you need financial infrastructure. Because the biggest risk in the sector is that technology risk. It's AML, it's digital, it's borderless, it's anonymous. If we actually cannot control the AML custodian the risk and the market conduct risk, it is very difficult for TradFi and digital assets to converge. That's my humble opinion. And that's why we need to work harder to build the basic fundamental safety net for the asset class so that we can have a future. Now, this is the last slide. This is a bit of a forward-looking message to the audience what the SFC will be focusing on in the next few months. Not a year, a few months. And that's where the steadier and faster concept we try to build in. First, a lot of you know that we have launched 2 consultation papers with a lot of your support. We're very much going to conclude on a positive note. That is talking about the virtual asset dealing license and the virtual asset custody license. And we are working very hard to print out the consultation conclusion. Thank you to my colleagues for working like light speed in churning out the results. Overwhelming positive support from the market. But then, as I said, If we actually wait for the legislation to come in, we will have to still wait for at least 1.5 to 2 years. No matter how fast we work, it takes time. That's why we want to be innovative and we try to create an opt-in pre-license regime in the sense that we already work, we use the word uplift. We have already 170 licenses which leverage the existing securities futures ordinance licenses, which equip our licensee to do digital assets business. So we want to kind of use that approach that if you come in, we will find a way to regulate you. Don't worry. And for the custody, it's actually a much more demanding regime. And I also said in multiple occasions that the threshold will be very high. And our scrutiny will be tough. So better to early engage us to talk about what your plan is and also discuss. Let us also listen to your requirements, and we will tell you our requirements. Fast-track innovation. This is one area when I talk to our VATPs, the trading platforms, and also practitioners. You see the previous slide about the stars. The one area that we are still having some gaps are product and services. But in order to have good product and services, it's not the regulator to facilitate that. It's also need quality inputs, fast input from the market. And this is one area, to be honest, we can actually move faster because we are trying to also educate our crypto native practitioners that, we need to use a lot of our traditional finance wisdom in order to make this a robust system. That's why we are going to launch an accelerator program so that it will be a bridge between the regulator and the practitioners to really fast-track a lot of the product service launch. This is an area that I hope in a few months' time we can announce more detail and that this is welcomed by the market. The last one is actually about fast-track risk surveillance capabilities. We actually have already started this. We call it CrypTech because we have FinTech, RegTech, we have different SupTech. Now, I want to create the word CrypTech. Crypto technology, that concept is actually included in Section 104 of this year's Chief Executive Policy Address, that we need to, the SFC will work with stakeholders to create a line of defense for digital assets. This is how much defense we have, define how fast, how far we can go. Very shortly, I've mentioned about the CrypTech is helping us regulators to monitor 3 types of risks. The first, we all know, AML risk. That is intrinsic to the digital asset arena. Second is custody risk. We know cybersecurity, we know fraud, we already are working with our VATPs on how to automate surveillance. And we regulators want to also lend help to our VATP community to provide a safe custody environment for client assets. Last one, you already actually read from the news that we issue a RFP for surveillance, market surveillance. We as a securities regulator, we look at market misconduct, price movements, activities, etc. And we need to build the infrastructure to do that. We have that for our securities market, but we don't have that yet for the digital asset market, and we need to build that. So you already see that we are taking stock. Now, I've probably used up my 10 minutes of time, and I hope this very brief session will give you an idea as to where we have been, we should be happier for our progress, and where we are going to be. And I promise you in the next big occasion, maybe in this venue or next, a different venue, we will tell you more progress, more good news to come. That is consistent with our Aspire roadmap. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Our next keynote, From Vulnerability to Vitality. Please help me to welcome here on stage Mr. Arthur Yuan. He is the Deputy Chief Executive